Ultimately, Dr. Stephen, most important thing is that it's written down and it makes sense, meaning it adds up. And what do you mean it adds up? It adds up with your goal, and you can show your work and reverse engineer that. And we're going to do that through the lens of your Lead Flow Worksheet.
That's exactly right. So you said it best, which is base case scenario is how we set our goals, right? So there's an intelligence to this. We want to be a data-driven business, and the data needs to be intelligent.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
What's up, Remarkables? Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast, chiropractic's #1 business podcast. And man, if we're not earning that moniker, this one, I don't know what we're going to have to do, Dr. Pete. I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And we are stoked, as always, to be with our CEOs. Thank you guys so much for just being such loyal listeners. Man, we love to see our podcast growing. We love to see our reach growing. The only way our reach grows is when we retain our loyal listeners and you tell everybody else about the podcast. So thank you so much, guys. It means so much to us. We love seeing you guys in person and hearing the stories, hearing how you're implementing. At the end of the day, this is like, with you guys, when you tell a patient to make changes and they make the changes and they get the results, never gets old. So thank you so much for the trust and for the implementation. I love what Drucker says. Good ideas are great, but execution is everything. And my goodness, if these two episodes, the last to now and the now to next episodes, are not all about implementation, if you're just sitting back on the couch or cruising in your car and like, oh, that was entertaining, listen to me when I say this. We have failed you. Okay. So this is not entertainment, right? This is not about it being informational. This is about transformation, right? So this is about you transforming your business from its current iteration into the next iteration that you are called to manifest in 2025. Dr. Pete, what a privilege to be able to light the path, right? So if you're wondering, what does it take to go from 150 a week to 300 a week? What does it take to go from 450 a week to 900 a week? What does it take to go from 1 practice to 3, from 3 to 33 practices? What does it take to go from $500,000 to 2.5 million to 7.5 million to 28.5 million? This is what it takes. What we're doing right now. There's no secrets. We don't gatekeep. We're telling you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's all about the last to now, now to next. Dr. Pete, let's go.
Yeah, this is about as good as it gets. So, Dr. Stephen, I'm equally inspired as I am, convicted about, the work that we do and what we're doing here. This is the work. This is the work of the CEO. If you want to make that ascension from being an owner operator and becoming that CEO, you want to go from being a CEO to a remarkable CEO. If you want to have that remarkable practice, that's part of the remarkable life, not instead of one. If you want to go from 1 million to 3 million and at the same time have a more remarkable life as a result and not have a life and business that compete with one another, it all comes back to these disciplines. I love the disciplines of execution. I love watching people execute who you can see did the work. They did the practice. They put the training, and I love watching the performers perform who did the invisible that made it visible. And this is that for you and for us. So we love seeing you perform. We love seeing you get your year over year better. You're bettering your best. We love seeing you ring the bells of hitting new benchmarks. And that energizes us because we know on the other side of all these numbers, our lives transformed. It's families transformed. It's the communities that we serve transformed. And it transforms your family, your family's life. It transforms the families of the people that work with you, and it transforms our profession. So remember everything that we did leading up to this. So if you didn't listen to the previous episode, I actually am going to ask you to stop. This will not be a benefit for you to listen any further than what we already got, which you probably got something already. So, but go back and listen to, and watch, actually even better, the previous episode, which was the last to now. So this is a series. It's a very much a 2-part series. In the first and second part, it's like a recipe. You can't go to the second step without the first step. So don't even do that. So go back and watch this on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. The Remarkable CEO Podcast. go and subscribe to that channel and watch the episode called Last to Now. And you'll see everything you need to know in preparation for this episode. The episode is part of part one of the APPEAR process, which is the A in the APPEAR acronym, which is the assess. And Dr. Stephen, as we were talking even before pressing record for this episode, is if you take one thing away from the 2-part series, it is, wow, how deep we went with the assess process, how much work went into that, because that is the deep work that must get done. For the rest of the APPEAR process to work, you have to have the assess part done. That's the deep, thorough. So we went deep, we went thorough, and we were just teaching the concept. We were teaching how to do it. If you were actually doing it, that's what it looks like, just exponentially more for your own business, so that you can be prepared. So assessing so you can prepare. Remember this. You assess so you can prepare. You can, or plan, I should say. You assess so that you can plan. You plan so that you can prepare. You prepare so that you can execute. You see there, each one leads to the next one. We assessed so that we can plan. We plan so that we can execute. We execute so that we can reassess this process and report back how did we did, and then repeat this process. So this is one leads into the other. And so in the APPEAR process, so now that we've assessed, now it's time to plan. Right. So the planning stage is, again, it's still the invisible stage. This is the invisible work that gets done in any successful and every successful business. So we've got to be able to look back and say, okay, what did we do? How did we do? Looked at that data. Now we can put together a plan, intelligent plan. And then from the plan, we begin to prepare. And then from that preparation, because we prepared better, because we had a better plan, because we had better reporting, we had better data, we had more intelligent, we prepared better, and then we should be able to show up and execute better. And when you execute better, that's how you actually see better outcomes. And like Dr. Stephen, we always say, we're attached to better outcomes for you. That's what we care about. And what you should care about for your business is, how do we create better outcomes? It's all about outcomes. And so then when we assess and we see the outcomes, hey, we actually did better. We got better. We saw growth. We assess that. And any areas where maybe we didn't, we can obviously look at that as well. We report back. How did we do? And then from that, we are able to plan and then prepare and repeat, rinse and repeat. So we use this APPEAR process on a quarterly basis. We use this on an annual basis. We use this on an ongoing basis. Actually, you could use this on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, this ongoing process. So Dr. Stephen, the APPEAR process comes full front and center every time we get together and we do the last to now and the now to next, and the tools that we've created to support this process for you to make it remarkable.
So Dr. Pete, as I'm listening to you, I can't help but drift into a current reality that, in our lives right now. We're building a house right now, right? So, you guys have heard us talk about, we bought a cottage, a summer place, and we love it, but we built it. We bought it so that we can build our dream house there one day, right? So we're in the throes of the planning process, right? So, I cannot believe the amount of detail that goes into the planning process. And as I'm listening to this APPEAR process, we're assessing the situation. Like what is the current lot? What is the current building there? What are the laws and the rules from the federal level EPA? It's on the ocean. So I've got EPA on my butt. I'm on an estuary behind me. So now I've got the Mass Department of Environmental Protection up my butt. Then I've got the county. Then I've got the town. It's like I've got it's 125 years. So I've got historical. There's an assessment process that's going on that is staggering, right? So, and then there's a planning process, right? So I've got engineers, I've got an architect, and I hired a project manager, and his line for me to hire him was fantastic. He's like, I'm going to, my job is to make sure you don't end up taking your focus off your business and focusing on building this house, so you don't pay for this house twice. And I'm like, that's a good line. I was like, you know me well. Did my wife tell you to say that to me? Because it's like, don't take your focus off your business so you end up paying for this house twice. I'm like, oh boy, sensei, that you're hired. You are hired. So I'm going through the detail with this guy, and he's bringing his people in. He's like, this is my architect. Here are 3 architects. I want you to choose the ones that you guys love, but I'm going to tell you that this is why I'm bringing in these architects and not these other 13 other architects. And here was the thing, Dr. Pete, was the planning process that these architects will do. They're going to draw out every millimeter of this house externally and internally. They're going to have a staged process where they're going to be able to measure the progress, know if we're on track or off track, time and budget, and make sure that every single thing behind the plaster is right? So like literally the details are all drawn out. And he's like, listen, it's going to cost you a couple $100,000 more to have me on the job and a couple $100,000 more to have the architects that I'm recommending. And I'm just like, gulp, because this is a multi-million-dollar project. And he's like, but it's going to save you another $500,000 for not having us there and not having the right plans and the details. He's like, can you see that? I'm like, I 100% see it. He's like, and you're going to have the peace of mind in the process. So it's a better experience and you're going to have the outcome that you want. So Dr. Pete, it was assess, plan, prepare, then the hammers will fly. Then the dust is going to fly. The sawdust is going to but it's so much. We're not even close to the execution piece of it because the front end is so loaded when it comes to the visioneering process and capturing the vision in the plans and making sure that all of the assessment is done so that we can plan, then prepare for the build. And my goodness, that's a house. We're talking about your business and you're in the business of saving lives. Mm-hmm. Where is your focus? Right? Mm-hmm. Are you focused on the year ahead as we plan for next year for 2025? Have you done the assessment process? If you haven't, please go back to that last episode. You've got to do it. You've got to assess, survey the land, understand every detail you need so that you can actually put together a detailed plan. Your blueprints have all of the details that's needed so that you don't waste time, energy, focus, and money and frustration and end up playing problem whack-a-mole versus being involved in a creative process that's going to manifest the business and practice of your dreams. We cannot overemphasize the importance here of making the investment of getting this right. So ultimately, when we talk about vision casting, there's a story that you tell so you can compel everybody to join you. You've got to create clarity for them so that they can see what you see. Clarity is your greatest accelerant. You want to slow this all down, make sure that they don't understand what the blueprints mean or say. Don't even show them the blueprints, right? So it's just like, let's just work harder, right? So let's work longer and stronger. We've got to make sure everybody has total clarity. Then we have to measure that. We got to make sure that we have the measurement. We have to quantify it so it remains objective. We want to have high data, low drama, like we talked about in the last episode. If you don't have the data, if it's not measured, you're going to have high drama. And I think most of us are allergic to drama. This is how you tamp that down. This is how you do it right now. So we're going to teach you how to set the goals and all of the data that will flow out of that with the tools that we're going to share with you on this podcast episode. And then obviously the third piece of this is having that infographic. For me, it's a blueprint for this beach house, right? So for you, it may be the accountability grid. It may be your accountability chart, right? It may be the lead flow infographic. This is a visual that everybody on the team can get and take a snapshot in their mind, Dr. Pete, so we can get to work. And it's all going to start with your ability to set good goals. I think this is where this is the alpha and the omega, frankly, okay, when it comes to being a visionary in a business and a business person, as an owner, as a leader of people. Setting goals is a massive responsibility because you're going to determine your outcomes and, more importantly, your experience of the next 12 months. Take this seriously. Set your goals seriously. Because what you're doing is your mouth is writing checks that your asses are going to have to cash. And this is your chance right now to say, I want to set intelligent goals that will stretch us, that are aspirational, but we have high certainty, conviction, and clarity around achieving them.
You know, Dr. Stephen, one of the things I love about our framework is it's rinse and repeat, right? We over and over and over again. It doesn't, it just continues on. That's how we know it works is when working is because each and every year is we repeat this process over and over. And each and every year we get better as we go. We continually grow year over year. And so when you talk about this idea of goal setting, it's a discipline that we have embraced wholeheartedly, but it's a result of your vision. So the first thing, like you said, that you have to get clear on is what is your vision? What does success look like for you? And so we're going to go through today even some of the the narrative tools that we use and the very practical, tools that we've designed that are to support you and bringing your the invisible into the visible, to take your vision and put it into words and put that words to paper and then turn that into goals. So goals are the manifestation of the vision of what success looks like. Says this is what we want to accomplish. This is what we are trying to accomplish. But again, going back to the previous episode, we don't just make up goals. We don't just make up goals that, well, this is what I would really like. It's like, okay, that's great, but that actually might be your 3-year goal, not your 1-year goal. How would you know the difference? Well, we got to be able to have the data that shows us. You're talking about an 80% growth rate this year over last year, when you've been averaging a 17.5% growth rate or 20% growth rate year over year. Where are you going to get that 80% growth in this next year? That is an aspirational goal. That's great. Maybe that's your 3-year target or 5-year target, but your 1-year target actually needs to be based on a level of intelligence. So we're using base case, which is how did we do, to be able to set the goals, base case goals for 2025. And we do it categorically. We go with, the year over year revenue, as we said, Dr. Stephen, because all roads lead to revenue and profit at the end of the day. So we're saying that's what you use to set the goal. But then those goals inform these goals, the goals that you have on your goals report, which are categorically the domain specific goals. So these would be your department heads, your directors of attraction, your director of conversion, your director of retention, your director of the business office. They're going to take these goals and they're going to own these goals. They're accountable now. This is why, Dr. Stephen, what you said was so important. This is a serious work. This is really important work to do, because now you're going to yoke someone else on your team with the goal for the next 12 months. They're going to be yoked with this outcome that they're accountable for. Remember, we're accountable to the outcome. And then the input is the tasks, the work, the action steps that drive those outcomes. That is what you're responsible for, but you're accountable to the outcome. So you do what needs to get done in order to drive that outcome. So we've got to put this to paper. So we organize then the goals categorically. Instead of just, hey, this revenue goal, show your work. It's like my kids when they bring me their math homework and I'm like, how'd you arrive at that answer? Like, show me how you got there. And I'm like, well, clearly you guessed, didn't you? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let me show you. Do you need some help with that? Okay. Oh, you need help showing work. Oh, here's how you could do it. And so what we do is we show our work. This is what the power of this report. And then what we're going to get into the lead flow is even more clearly showing your work. Here's how we arrive at this point, because that's how you're going to get that buy-in from your team that supports. So again, organize your goals in terms of domain: attraction, conversion, retention, and collections. We're not going to get into the goals worksheet deeply today. You can go back and listen to other episodes where we've gone through the goals worksheet. We organize and we give you suggested KPIs. What are the company goals we should set for attraction, conversion, retention, and collections? But ultimately, Dr. Stephen, the most important thing is that it's written down and it makes sense, meaning it adds up. And what do you mean it adds up? It adds up with your goal, and you can show your work and reverse engineer that. And we're going to do that through the lens of your lead flow worksheet.
That's exactly right. So you said it best, which is base case scenario is how we set our goals, right? So there's an intelligence to this. We want to be a data-driven business, and the data needs to be intelligent. In other words, it's based on past performance. So we look at the data and we say, okay, so if we're going to set goals for 2025, let's look at 2024 and the performance associated with 2024, because the best predictor of tomorrow's weather is yesterday's weather. So the best predictor of next year's performance is last year's performance, right? So making sure that we're looking at it through the lens of, okay, base case scenario is going to keep us at a place where we're going to continue to stretch, and we're going to arrive at the most predictable outcome for the year, right? So we did a deep dive on base case scenario, okay, in the previous episode. So we're not going to do that here. I want to make sure that you don't skip right over that. You got to know how to use base case scenario, because you're setting the goal. This is the destination you're plugging into the GPS system. So if you're like hoping that this GPS system is going to tell you the right turn to take and how long to travel on that road before you have to take the exit, you better be giving it the right coordinates of where you're going to land. This is how you figure out what are the coordinates of where we're going to land, right? So this helps you arrive at the second number in the GPS system, all right? So extrapolate out what is your base case scenario. We are going to use that base case scenario and the Lead Flow infographic, this tool to reverse engineer our goals in all of these performance metrics or operational performance metrics categorically, from attraction to conversion to retention to collections. All of it's captured right here in this tool. Again, we're not going to review the Lead Flow infographic in great detail here from an entry point. Go back to the last episode. We walk right through it. That's why that last episode is quite long, is because we want you to understand these tools, right? So now you're seeing how the tools play out, right? So it's like, I'm setting goals. Okay. Get your Lead Flow infographic out, right? So get your metrics, your vital signs from last year, and you're going to populate this Lead Flow infographic, and it's going to spit out the numbers you need to put on this form as you're setting your goals. That's what Dr. Pete meant by there needs to be continuity. There needs to be an intelligence as to how you arrived at them, and you're not just guessing. This stuff has to jive. It all has to add up, right? So anywhere that it doesn't is what's going to kick your butt during the year as the visionary, right? So we have our base case scenario that we set. We use that base case scenario and top line revenue goal to reverse engineer the other performance metrics across attraction, conversion, and retention and collections. And this Lead Flow infographic is an incredibly powerful tool to use. I like to say, let's look at the last 90 days performance to predict the next 90 days performance. So in this example, again, you should be watching this on YouTube so you can see what's on the screen. We have the Lead Flow infographic as a giveaway. You have that. There's a link down below. Just click the link and print out not just one copy. You're going to want a stack of these, right? So this is a worksheet, right? So trust me, you're going to want a stack of these. You want to do this in pencil. Trust me, this is a pencil workbook activity, not a pen, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to stick with the same example that we gave you in the last to now in the last conversation. We're going to use the actuals that came out of Q4 2024 to set our goals for, in this example, Q1 for 2025. Yes, you're going to set your whole year goals, but I'm going to use this tool to show you what does it look like when you're setting your next quarter's goals, right? And the best predictor of the next 90 days is the last 90 days, right? So what we're going to look at in this example is the Q4 actuals, not the goals we set, but the actual outcomes from fourth quarter to now set the goals as we're planning and preparing for Q1 2025. Okay. Please forgive the repetitiousness of how we're teaching, guys. We just want to bring you with us. Okay. We don't want to lose anybody as we go through this, right? So as we look at this from left to right, what you're seeing is you've got attraction metrics, conversion metrics, and retention metrics, right? So these are the actual outcomes. So now we're going to reference these when we set the goals for the next quarter, right? So we're referencing, if you look at the performance metrics at the top, we referenced how did we do last quarter, and then we're saying, you know what are the remarkable metrics? What are the remarkable standards for each one of these? And we recognize what we're trying to do is we're trying to reverse engineer another $10,000 in collections, holding constant. We've got $300 collections per patient per month. So revenue per patient per month is at $300. We're holding that constant. We want to grow $10,000 more per month by the end of March. So by the end of first quarter, that 10,000 growth at $300 per customer per month or per patient per month, we're going to need to grow by another 33 per month. So we're going to go from 333, which is where we ended fourth quarter. We're going to gain another 33 over the next 3 months. That's going to get us to 366 total active patients. If your eyes are rolling back in your head right now, it probably means that you did not do this exercise with us in last to now in the last episode. So please go back, watch that on YouTube, print these out and walk through it, and you're going to be catching right up with us. Okay. So now here's our goal. We got to get to 366 total active patients by the end of first quarter to grow this business by 10,000 a month, because our average patient pays us $300 a month. It's like, okay, I need to grow 66 people, positive net momentum of 66 in first quarter 2025. Great. There's 3 months. If I need to grow 33, I know that's 11 per month. And these are monthly metrics across the top. So I need to average, again, 11 net mo. We're keeping these numbers constant so you can be like, okay, I'm following you, right? So I know that we are looking at a goal of a 3% churn rate. Remember, we struggled a bit with a 5% churn rate. We're like, no, we're not going to set a goal at 5%. We're going to set it to the remarkable standard of 3%. Okay. So if we've got 300 total active patients, we know we're going to see 11 people quit, right? So it's actually 333 patients, right? So we've got 3% of 333. We see 11 people per month quit on average, right? Because remember, the TAP is growing, the business is growing. 3% of 333 is 11. So we're trying to get to 11. So we need to convert and reactivate 22 people, because if 22 people join and 11 quit, we can get to a positive 11 net momentum. We want to average that over the 3 months so the business can grow by 33 per month, by another 33 total active patients, which takes us to 366, Dr. Pete. So what you can see is if we are going to see 3 reactivations, we're reactivating at a 0.1%, okay? So 0.1% is that minimum standard. If we have 3,000 previous active patient, that gets us to 3. So we have 3 people per month on average reactivating. So we know we're going to lose 11. We're trying to get to 11. Man, we need to convert 19, because 19 plus 3 is 22. 22 joining, 11 quitting. That's going to get us to a positive 11 net momentum. Okay. So now we know we got to get 19 new conversions, newies. So we know not everybody that gets a report of findings converts. We convert at about an 80% conversion rate. We looked at what we did fourth quarter. We did 82%. The standard is 80%. So let's set it at 80%. Okay. Set ourselves up for success. And we say, all right, so if 80% are going to convert, we need to do 24 day twos or 24 recommendations for care, right? So to get 19 to start, because we're going to reactivate 3, that gets us to 22, and we're going to lose 11, which gets us to our 11. Well, we know not everybody that gets a day 1 comes back for a day 2. In other words, not every new patient exam and consultation exam comes back for report of findings. We have a 90% stick rate. So 90% of people that get a day 1 new patient consultation and exam come back for their recommendations or care. So to get to 24, we need to do 27, right? So 27 new patient exams. We also know not everyone that schedules a new patient exam actually shows up for the new patient exam. So we know we got a 90% show rate from scheduled to actually coming in. So we need to do 30 new patients to actually do 27 new patient exams so that we can convert 19. We know we're going to reactivate 3, and we know we're going to lose 11, which gets us to our positive 11. So Dr. Pete, we like the 3 tributaries of new patients: internal, external, and digital. So we evenly distribute it: 10 internal referrals, 10 external new patients, 10 digital new patients to get us 30 scheduled. 90% show up, 27 actually show up. 90% of those come back for their day 2 recommendations for care. So 24 get recommendations. 80% of them actually convert to care. So now we have 19 new ones converted. We reactivate 0.1%, not 1%, 0.1% of our previously active patients. So we got 3 coming back every month. So now we got 19 joining, new ones joining, 3 coming back and rejoining. So we got 22 on the way in. We lose 3%. That's our churn rate every month. So we have 11 quitting, 22 minus 11. Dr. Pete gets us to our positive 11 net momentum on average for those 3 months, which picks us up 33 positive net mo, which takes us from 333 total active patients to 366 total active patients. 366 total active patients times $300 per month. Average collections per patient per month gets us to the $110,000 collection in March. Amen. Period. Hard stop.
So this is exactly why, as an example, you do this with your team, right? So this would be the work that you do in advance before, the assess, this whole process. So you've done this, you do this with your team. We review this with your team so everybody sees and understands that. If anybody has any questions, they could do this. Raise your hand if you have any questions. Do you have any, concerns? Do you have any issues? Is there any confusion, right? So this is your moment. If you're thinking through this through the lens of the board meeting and having everybody buy in, everybody see it. Does everybody see it? Does anybody have any questions? Make sure that, because what Dr. Stephen just went through, if he asked, if this was not a podcast, but this was let's say a webinar, and you could raise your hand, we would have a lot of people with their hands raised and questions in the chat right now. Guess what? Your questions that you have are the questions your team has. So be thinking about that and be ready to receive the questions, that they're going to ask you, to make sure that everybody's bought and everybody can see it and everybody's on the same page, because what we want to make sure is everybody does, because what this then leads to is the accountability grid audit. So just like we went through last time, we said, well, what were the points of constraint? I could say a few just based on the goals here. Number 1, our internal and external new patient lead gen was down. So the question is that I would ask is if we ended up with 8 on average last quarter, and we're saying we're going to do 10 internally, what are we going to do differently to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself and we end up falling short again? So then this is where we say, okay, well, is this a process or a project issue point of constraint? If it's a process-based one, hey, who owns internal new patient lead gen? Let's say it's your check-in CA, for example. It's one of the areas of accountability on their scorecard. You can look at pull the scorecard of the check-in CA and say, all right, based on your accountability, is this an area that we need to be able to focus on as this quarter? Is this just a process-related issue, like our process-driven new ones were down, or the 2 campaigns that we ran in fourth quarter, they fell flat? Was it a campaign-related focus? Or is it, hey, we have process, but we don't have campaigns, and that's why we fell short. So we maybe need to turn this into a project, which is we need to create campaigns in Q1 so that we can get that bump in internal new patient lead gen, because we already have a process going, but we need the campaigns to be able to support the goal of 10 internal new patients a month. That's where you would differentiate those as an example. So you look at the point of constraint from the accountability grid. You ask yourself, is this a process issue, or does it need to be a project because it's missing? In this scenario, let's say it was a project because you didn't have any campaigns in fourth quarter. Therefore, we fell short. Now we need to put campaigns in Q1, which would be a project to build the campaign for that so that we actually hit the goal coming alongside of that individual who owns that KPI. That's just an example of how you would use the lead flow from last quarter to this quarter to determine the project or process that you're going to be focusing on. And then that's just one of them. That's looking at internal new patients under the attraction, just the first box on the top.
That's right. So Dr. Beat, I love what you just did there. You guys have to understand, when we teach this last to now, now to next, you hear a big pause between those two. It's like, this is the appear process. Assess, plan, prepare, execute, assess, report, repeat. The assess, it's all the same word, appear. Assess is assess the past so that we can then plan and prepare. So it's literally, we do the assessment. Okay, that's part of this same exercise. We look back and we do the lead flow infographic so that we can then do the accountability grid audit and say, is it optimized 0 to 10? Identify the constraints of the business and who owns it so that we can then hand out KPIs and projects. You guys see it? Like you literally, this isn't 2 different things. This is the first step of this process is to assess. The second step is then to take what you learn and plan and prepare to execute, right? So these things are completely married, right? These aren't 2 different things, right? So this is the first step in the process, is to assess, looking at and get real numbers and be like, oh man, look at these, see some of these numbers are red, some are green, some are black. These red ones, guess what those are? Problems, right? It's either problemo. These are constraints of the business. We need to address internal, external, our total new patient leads. We have to talk about this churn rate, right? So we have to look at our inactives, right? Like these are all KPIs. And this is where it's like, is it a scorecard or is it a project, right? So, and this is how we are planning and putting together our plan to execute in 2025. Dr. Pete, essentially, once we've identified this, what we can then do is we can then tell a story. And we can tell a story, right? And the story, it's like, hey, yeah, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to see what I see, right? And this is where we capture this in this journal format. So we have a story to tell. And part of that story is like, hey, look at this infographic. We're going to make these changes, those blue arrows between the last to now, right? So it's like the now to next, is like, here's the business we finished up in 2024 with. This is what it's going to look like at the end of 2025. And those blue arrows would represent the major changes that we're going to make in the business. It might be we're going to add some technology. It might be like we're going to hire a marketing company. It might be we're going to split the front desk, check-in. We're going to bring in a new patient counselor. We're going to bring in a caregiver associate doctor. What are the big changes that you're going to make? We're going to go from 4 tables to 6. We're going to open our hours, expand our physical plant. What are the big changes that you're going to create greater capacity for your business to grow into its next iteration in 2025? That's what these blue arrows represent. We're going to give you guys these other tools. We have the vision story tool that where you can capture this as a PDF. We have the vision mapping tool, which gets into the details of the last to now to next to ultimate. but I really want to zoom in on this one piece of this where you're like, the now when you're doing this exercise, that's the brutal facts. That's what you pulled out of the assessment process with the lead flow infographic, the accountability grid. These are the constraints you identified. That's what goes on that line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the constraints. Now, the next iteration of the changes you're going to make, this is how we're going to fix our shit to go from now to next. These are the process or the KPIs, who's going to get them. Here's the projects that we're going to assess. These are the changes that we're going to make in 2025 to go from now to next and manifest the next iteration of our remarkable practice. Dr. Pete, this is the unsexy, deep work that most people just won't do, which is why most people never succeed. They never manifest the business that supports their remarkable life and not competes with it. We promise you guys, we're committed to this. We want to give you this. We're giving you this. Like, this is the secret. We're not gatekeeping anything. There's no secret behind this, right? So what do we do as coaches? Our role as coaches is to unearth what your vision is. Mm-hmm. What does your beach house look like, right? So we want to help you put together those plans, right? So our job is to unearth, what is your vision story? What does success look like for you 3 years from now? Okay. So, and if for that to be true, where do you need to be at the end of 2025? That's our job as coaches. Unearth that, not tell you what it looks like, unearth it, making sure that it's a reflection of your core values, not competing with your core values. And then we help you identify what are those steps that belong in the now to next, that incremental changes that we're going to help you unearth that and help expose those are the changes, help you make the hard decisions. We're going to ask the tough questions, and then we'll come alongside of you. Okay. Just like chiropractic, this is a done with you program, not a done for you program, right? So we're going to come alongside you on your journey. You are the hero. We are the shepherds. We are the Sherpas on this journey, and you will find a team of people that will come around you, and they will give you the encouragement, the support, the guidance. It'll be hugs, high five, headlocks, whatever it takes. We're going to come alongside you and help you in your 2025. So if this is resonant with you right now, if you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm missing. Let's face it, what I'm missing is that right there. I'm missing that first process of helping me unearth. Help me get clarity. Clarity is the greatest accelerant. I lack clarity. I lack clarity. Prioritization, help me put it in order. And then ultimately, I want a relationship where you're going to hold me accountable to doing the things that I know I should be doing. All right. So if this is you right now, if we're talking to you right now and you're ready to take the reins and make 2025 your best year yet, man, you're talking to a couple of guys that lead a whole bunch of fantastic, brilliant, giving, loving, serving, generous, humble, smart servant leader coaches who would love to come alongside you and help make that a reality. Let us compress time. Let us pull your success forward, pull the money forward, and make 2025 your most remarkable year yet.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.